Welcome to my channel, Unveiling Dark Secrets. My name is Wendy, and today's true crime case is an unsolved cold case out of Germany. Before I dive in, I want to give a trigger warning for gruesome details of the murders, abuse of all types, and possible incest. So again, viewer discretion is advised. I also want to apologize ahead of time for any mispronounced names I might say. So while you are here, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe. All right, let's get into this case. On the fateful night of March 31st, 1922, a brutal crime sent shockwaves through the peaceful countryside of Bavaria. The victims of the Hinterkaifeck farm murders were a family of 6. Andreas, 63, and Cecilia Gruber, 72. Their daughter, Victoria Gabrielle, 35. Victoria's children, Cecilia, age 7, and Joseph, age 2. And the family's maid, Maria Baumgartner, 44. Each of them suffered brutal injuries that seemed to be very calculated. We will get into each of the injuries in a few minutes. Just know, the tranquil farm turned into a house of horror as these innocent lives were barbarically taken. In the days leading up to the murders, the Gruber family reported several odd occurrences. Footprints in the snow leading from the woods to the farm but not back, mysterious footsteps in the attic, and a missing house key. Were these signs of impending doom or just coincidences? The true extent of the tragedy only came to light several days later when concerned neighbors noticed the absence of the Gruber family from their usual routine. Alarm bells rang when mail began to accumulate at the local post office and the children failed to show up for school. What awaited the investigators was a scene of unimaginable horror. The crime scene was horrifying. The victims were found in various locations on the farm, suggesting that they were taken by surprise. The murder weapon? A mattock, a tool similar to a pickaxe, which belonged to the farm itself. The killer not only took lives, but stayed in the house after feeding the cattle and eating meals. This led investigators to believe that the assailant was familiar with the family and perhaps the farmer. Before I get into the weapons that were used, let's talk about the victims and their injuries. Victoria Gabrielle and Cecilia Gruber both had multiple holes in the right side of their skulls. Victoria had 9 precise blows, while Cecilia had 8. Maria Baumgartner had at least 1 hole in her skull cap and additional injuries to her face on the right side. Joseph Gabriel was killed by a single powerful blow to the right side of his skull. Cecilia Gabrielle, age 7, was a victim of desire and had 1 hole from a mattock on the right side of her face. Her mouth and jaw were smashed with an iron band to silence her, and she suffered a fatal throat slit from a pocket knife, which belonged to Andreas Gruber, her grandfather. This is only a theory, but it is presumed the murderer wanted to, assault Cecilia, since she was not unalived immediately. She was scared to death. She had just witnessed the murders of her mother Victoria and her grandmother Cecilia. Gruber pounced on little Cecilia and she panicked and she screamed. Her tormentor took the iron band and hit the child's mouth with it to silence her. Cecilia did not surrender, however, and tore her hair out from her head in her death throes. Finally, Gruber cut the child's throat with his pocket knife, which he always had in his stable pants pocket. The attempted assault explains why Cecilia was found half naked in the barn and why the child was not killed immediately. It is said that Andreas Gruber died from falling on the tip of a heavy pickaxe, which was found in the animal feeding trough on April 4th, 1922. He bled to death within a very short time because the pickaxe tore through his carotid artery. The flesh was torn on the right side of his cheek and the bone was visible. This was the only injury that Andreas had, which is very different from the others. It is believed that if it was someone else who had murdered everyone, they would have done the same to Andreas. The murder weapons used in the Hinterkaifeck murders were the mattock, pocket knife, and iron bait. Andreas Gruber, the patriarch of the family, was the owner of the mattock, which he had stolen years before from a neighbor. He modified it by adding clamps, a threaded screw, and a weighted head, making it a lethal tool. The mattock was used to deliver precise and measured blows to the victims' skulls, leading to their deaths. The pocket knife, always carried by Andreas Gruber, was used to inflict the fatal throat slit on Cecilia. The iron band was used to silence Cecilia's screams. It is important to note that all the murder weapons were already present on the farm before the night of the crime. The murderer hid them so well that they were only discovered when the farm was subsequently demolished. Investigation and evidence analysis in the Hinterkaifeck murders provide several clues that point towards Andreas Gruber as a possible suspect. Andreas Gruber had a criminal record for incest, and his aggressive and brutal treatment of his family and neighbors was well known. He frequently used dangerous objects, such as a scythe, pitchfork, or a shotgun to threaten and attack people. Witnesses also reported instances of child abuse, where Andreas beat his children and denied them sufficient. His daughter Victoria revealed that Andreas would beat her to death if she had been involved with other men. The marks of strangulation on Victoria's neck suggest an emotional bond between the perpetrator and the victim. These behavioral patterns indicate a potential motive for Andreas Gruber to commit the murder. Furthermore, Andreas Gruber's possession of the murder weapons, his familiarity with the unique striking technique of the mattock, and his role in hiding the tools in the farm indicate his involvement. The ingenious hiding places for the murder weapons, along with Andreas Gruber's actions to cover up the crime and his presence on the farm after the murders, point to him as a potential suspect. The fact that large sums of gold and silver money were left behind suggests that the motive behind the crime was not robbery. However, it is essential to note that the Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved, and these clues and evidence do not conclusively prove Andreas Gruber's guilt. The case poses many unanswered questions, and the true identity of the murderer still remains a mystery. Speculation also surrounded Carl Gabriel, the husband of Victoria, who was believed to have died in World War I. The theory arose that he may have returned and committed the murder. Likewise, Joseph Baumel, a former suitor of Victoria, found himself under scrutiny due to a legal dispute over paternity. However, both suspects had alibis and lacked direct evidence linking them to the crime. As time went on, the Hinterkaifeck farm was demolished in 1923, erasing a physical reminder of the heinous crime. The victims were laid to rest in a nearby cemetery, their final resting place forever marked by the tragedy that befell them. And there we have it, the dark and twisted tale of the Hinterkaifeck farm murders. While we may never know what happened, the mystery continues to intrigue and unsettle us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Germany's most notorious unsolved cases, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to share it with your fellow true crime enthusiasts. Don't forget to subscribe for more investigative journeys into the unsolved and the unknown. Until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and if you see something, say something.